Last week, we saw the number 1 ranked wide receiver in America, Dakorien Moore, make a surprise decision. Now, the timing of his commitment wasn't necessarily a surprise. July 4th was the date that he was going to announce. But the team that he went to, the Oregon Ducks, most experts 48 hours out had Texas. Of course, Oregon started trending on July 4th, and he ultimately picked the Ducks. But with his commitment, now there are only 5 remaining wide receivers in the top 10 available, 5 off the board, 5 still remaining. And in this video, we are going to figure out where the remaining 5 wide receivers in the top 10 are going to go. But before we get into it, guys, I need you to do me a favor. Hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel, the best recruiting channel on all of YouTube. Jump on board and get subscribed. All right, I want to break this down. You know what? I want to go to the whiteboard for this. We need to go to the whiteboard for this. This is important. I like to do positional breakdown, so we're going to do the wide receivers now. All right, this is the board. These are the On3 rankings. Let me make that clear. These are the On3 rankings. So at number 1, we have Dakorien Moore, and at number 10, we have Travis Smith. These are the teams that want a number 1. Who wants a number 1 wide receiver? Well, Oregon has 2 of them already committed. Ohio State has 1 in Quincy Porter. Talon Taylor, a number 1 wide receiver, committed to Georgia. And then you got Joshua Moore already committed to UF. So those are the 5 that are committed. Now I want to break down the 5 that are uncommitted. Let's bring in Director of Recruiting Chad Simmons for this. All right, Chad. We got the wide receivers here. We'll skip to number 3 because Dallas Wilson and Dakorien Moore are already committed to Oregon. And we got Kaliq Lockett here at number 3. He's from the state of Texas, and his decision is set for August 7. Chad, what's the most likely destination right now for Kaliq Lockett?
Yeah, I think right now, Josh, I lean towards Texas. Obviously, an in-state target. I think he became that much more important to Sark, to Chris Jackson, to that program. With Dakorien Moore leaving the state for Oregon over the weekend, I like Lockett to Texas right now. I don't think this is done and finalized, but I do like where Texas stands right now.
Yeah, now Lockett is making that decision on August 7th. So we could very well see him take a visit at the end of July when the dead period opens up for that weekend. What other teams could potentially make a run at Kaliq Lockett and become the favorite?
We've always had LSU, Steve Wiltfong and myself in the mix for them. But I think, honestly, the biggest competition before you make that line too sharp and too deep there, Josh, is Alabama. Of course, Florida State's in there too, Texas A&M. But I think there's some separation with Texas and Alabama, those top 2 right now battling for that top spot. We're a little bit less than a month away from that decision, but I like Texas 1 or 1A and then Alabama 1B right now for Lockett.
All right, Keelan Russell putting in work in that in-state wide receiver, trying to bring him to Alabama. Also FSU involved. We'll see what happens with Kaliq Lockett, but that end of July visit weekend could be huge to see where he shows up. All right, let's move to number 4, and we got Caleb Cunningham. And there are rumors, Chad, that Caleb Cunningham could be coming off the board very soon, maybe as soon as this weekend. Who are the real players there? Because I know he's named a lot of number 1 programs over the last 3 months.
Yeah, but one that's been pretty consistent the last few weeks has been Alabama, that top school. I mean, they got the last OV. They had the chance to make the last impression if he was going to make an early decision, which he really wasn't planning to do until he took that visit to Alabama. That really flipped everything upside down from his commitment timeline. Now talking a summer decision, like you said, maybe sooner than later. Bama went in maybe in that top group, but came out the top school. So right now, I like Alabama as the school that's trending pretty heavily for Caleb Cunningham.
All right, so now it looks like Bama with 2 potential number 1 wide receivers that they could potentially land if things fall their way. But Caleb Cunningham, I mean, he has named a bunch of favorites this spring, so he's a bit of a probably the biggest wild card of the uncommitted guys. So if Caleb Cunningham didn't end up at Alabama, where do you think he could land?
Obviously he's a Mississippi kid, so you got to look there in state. Mississippi State right there is on your board. That was where my prediction was on the On3 recruiting prediction machine for Cunningham, early in the year, and it stayed that way through much of June until that Alabama visit, again, flipped things upside down. So I think you have to start with Jeff Lebby and the Mississippi State Bulldogs. He will take some trips, I think, during the fall whether he's committed or not at that time. I think you have to go back to Mississippi State for that school you're watching behind Alabama right now.
Yeah, but he's also been to Tennessee. He's at one point, didn't he name Auburn? He named Auburn a leader. At one point, I think he named UF his leader, but I agree. I think right now for Caleb Cunningham, Alabama. So we got Alabama and Texas in line, in at least our opinion, to land a number 1 wide receiver. Let's move on. Quincy Porter committed to Ohio State. They got their number 1. Vernell Brown III. This has been a really interesting recruitment because at certain points, he's been trending to different teams, whether it's Ohio State, Miami, UF, FSU also involved. But what about Vernell Brown, who is also likely going to make a decision this month?
Yeah, I think he's still kind of finalizing that and kind of locking in that date, but I think it's coming very soon. With Vernell, Josh, we go back a few months. I would say Ohio State's in a great spot. They were trending early in the spring. They got him to Columbus. They got the first official visit that May 31st weekend for Vernell Brown and his family. But I think coming out of those trips, and even before then, maybe mid to late spring, it started trending more towards him staying home in the state of Florida somewhere. And at that time, it's kind of been pretty consistent for me. It's Florida versus Florida State. I kind of emerged as the 2 schools to watch. FSU got the last official visit, but right now for me, my pick's been on Florida for some time on the On3 recruiting prediction machine. He's a Florida legacy. He has many connections to that program. He's been there many times, and I've always kind of played around. I think he's got some orange and blue blood running through those veins, since he was born. So, again, I'd be a little surprised if someone upsets Florida in this race, but Florida State has given him a lot to think about throughout this process. Ron Dugans, Mike Norvell, but right now I like Florida's position for Vernell Brown III.
Yeah, I like where Florida stands right now, as we could be a couple weeks out from Vernell Brown III, and that would be Florida's second top 10 wide receiver in America. So that would be huge for the Gators. Let's move down to number 8. We got Jamie Ffrench. So Jamie Ffrench has one time been trending into Ohio State. He was committed to Alabama at one point, currently trending to Texas, but we know there's other teams involved. Break down Jamie Ffrench.
Yeah, we had all those things coming out about the 3, of Kaliq Lockett, DeCorian Moore, and Jamie Ffrench to Texas. Could they get all 3? Well, obviously Moore's off the board, at least commitment-wise, verbally right now, to Oregon. So could they be the top 2 guys, going to Texas? I still lean towards Texas, right now for Ffrench. I mean, the big thing for Jamie, he's been very transparent, is about comfortability, hospitality, where his family feels most comfortable at, and where they connect with as a family the best. I think they've done a great job at Texas doing that. Now, he doesn't commit until August 30th. He's likely to take a few visits that last week of July as well. LSU's very much in the mix. And I'm telling you, people have told me, continue to tell me, do not sleep on the Miami Hurricanes for Jamie Ffrench. That's an in-state program. He took an OV there. They are pushing hard for Jamie Ffrench. To me, that's kind of a dark school to watch in this race. Do not sleep on they don't get as much pub as maybe Texas or LSU in this race, but Miami is very much a threat. But if I'm picking one school that's trending the most today, I like Texas.
All right, so it looks like Texas is in line for their second elite top 10 wide receiver, at least in regards to our breakdown. So now let's move down to number 10, and that's Travis Smith. He's out of the Atlanta, Georgia area. And Chad, I'll let you take this away because you had big news today on the on3.com front page on wide receiver Travis Smith.
Yeah, he had 4 schools, obviously took OVs to Alabama, Auburn, Georgia, and Tennessee. That was really the final 4 schools. He's pretty much knocked Auburn out of the running there and kind of down to 3. And his words to me, what day was it? Tuesday, I guess Monday night, was he was torn kind of between those 3 SEC programs. Obviously had very good OVs to Tuscaloosa, Athens, and Knoxville. Tennessee got that last official visit on that June 21st weekend. Really, for me, since that OV, and even maybe a little bit before then, I started to like Tennessee's position the most. Going back to early in the year, I had Georgia kind of as the favorite, but I've been kind of painting the picture in different articles that Tennessee's kind of been coming on strong, competing against Georgia, the in-state program, Kendall Pope, Josh Heupel, the offensive scheme, the players they're bringing in, George McIntyre and company, really appeal to Travis. And I like Tennessee's position the most. Now, Bama and Georgia, there's still communication
Yeah,
there, but
we
I
can see
like where
it.
Tennessee sits today, Josh, for Travis Smith.
Yeah, and I mean, this is a simple breakdown. Now, you can really get a good idea for what's going on here with the top 10 wide receivers in America. This is your roadmap right now. You can see who's landing a top wide receiver and who needs to put in some work over the next couple weeks if they're going to land their number one. Because right now you got Alabama, you got double up on Texas. We got UF, we like to land one of these guys, in Tennessee. So there's 5 remaining in the top 10. We'll see how all this shakes out. But let me hear your guys' opinion. Comment section below. How do you think this is going to shake out? Do you agree with me and Chad, or do you look at the possibilities and think there could be a different ending? Let us know. Comment section below. Well, you've made it to the end of today's video, but there's hundreds more videos on the On3 Recruits channel for you to check out. And also, while you're here, hit subscribe.